Now I would like to give the floor to the distinguished representative of Sri Lanka. You have the floor, sir.
Mr. Chairman, Sri Lanka has been committed to the goal of the prevention of an arms race in outer space, and it is with this intention that, together with Egypt, we have been tabling the resolution on PAROS, which you are pleased to note was adopted by consensus. We thank all delegations, particularly the co-sponsors, for their continued support. The resolution has been calling for negotiations to begin on an international legally binding instrument at the Conference on Disarmament. Sri Lanka has also been supportive of other processes that support and buttress the international discourse on the subject.
I'm awfully sorry, but you as the co-sponsor and one who leads
Mr. Chairman, I'm coming to our vote on the other resolutions.
Right, but you are not allowed to speak on your own resolution, so therefore I would really kindly ask you. Thank you.
Sri Lanka has also been supportive of other processes that support and buttress the international discourse on the subject. In this context, we voted in favor of Resolution L55, entitled Further Practical Measures for the Prevention of an Arms Race in Outer Space, as well as Resolution L53, No First Placement of Weapons in Outer Space, and L54, Transparency and Confidence Building Measures in Outer Space Activities. However, we were compelled to abstain from Resolution L15, Rev 1, as the content of the resolution has changed from its previous version to include the establishment of another OEWG, which would essentially duplicate other processes and create an undue burden on member states with capacity constraints, especially of smaller delegations. We reiterate that discussions on norms, principles, and responsible behavior in outer space are intrinsically subjective and for that reason lack consistency, and the potential for exploitation can lead to increased tensions and conflicts and would surely limit progress and innovation. In the absence of objective criteria, different interpretations can fuel tensions and be an impediment to collaboration that can lead to conflict and a lack of trust between spacefaring nations. Without clear and universally agreed upon guidelines, there may be room for manipulation and actions that undermine the principles of fairness and equality in space activities. Their validity to non-spacefaring nations depends only on the extent to which they lend credence to the discussions on an international legally binding instrument. My delegation considers that this must not be confused with discussions on rules that can include a legally binding instrument. Norms, principles, and responsible behaviors are essentially the prerogative of the spacefaring nations and are generally non-binding and lack legal enforceability. They are no more than guidelines. On the other hand, legally binding instruments such as a treaty or an international agreement is a formal document that creates legal obligations for the parties involved and carries legal consequences if violated. Legally binding instruments create legally binding obligations, and non-compliance can lead to legal dispute sanctions or other legal consequences. The adoption of norms and standards does not necessarily require the unanimous agreement of all parties involved, whereas a legally binding instrument requires a more formal process of negotiation and ratification. As an international community, we must continue to work towards developing a comprehensive legal framework for outer space activities, balancing the need for regulation with the desire to foster innovation and cooperation. I thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I thank the distinguished representative of Sri Lanka for his